All right. Welcome back to That Part. I'm Verda.
And I'm not.
And this season, we ask Black women in our lives one simple question. If you could talk about anything on a podcast, what would it be?
And the answers were real and personal, thoughtful in ways that stayed with us.
Na was the brainchild behind this question, and she was asking it behind my back. And I'm grateful for it. So this season, we're bringing those women into conversation. We're doing a little research, we're showing up curious, and letting the conversation unfold in real time.
Now, I have to say, it really wasn't behind your back. It was like literally sitting next to you. But I'll also say that, the whole thing is the thing Black women are thinking about are often the conversation the world has not caught up to. And so, we're gonna try and do that.
And today we're starting with someone who's been with us before. We're starting with Jihan and a topic that feels like it lives in the body and not just in the mind.
Realigning with self after motherhood. We are all, well, not maybe all of us, but certainly we are on this podcast feel that very real ways.
Yeah, so welcome back, Jihan.
Hey guys, how are you? I feel like I'm coming back to my sisters and
You
just coming
are.
around for a little happy hour chat,
I know, right?
So
I
I
have my,
absolutely love this.
it's non-alcoholic, but it's
Sisterhood
a
moment. So I
cocktail.
love this. Yes.
If I
Yeah.
had one, I'd have an alcoholic cocktail. We had a lovely limoncello. Well, I had a lovely limoncello margarita yesterday.
Ooh, that
I
sounds
wish
amazing.
it was
Very
delicious.
springish,
Absolutely delicious.
summer.
Next time you're in New York,
Um,
we're all gonna go.
yeah, let's put that on the calendar.
Hmm.
Well, what we've been holding lately is how easy it is for identity to shift quietly. Not necessarily in big dramatic ways, but in small decisions over time. What you say yes to, what you stop making space for, and then one day you look up and realize you've been living in a version of yourself that you did not consciously choose.
And it resonates with me a lot because I've been thinking about how so often, especially Black women, we're praised for how much we can hold, right? How much we can carry, and how rarely we're asked what it costs us to carry it, right? I can do a lot. I always could. We can all. But just because
Right.
I can doesn't mean that I should,
I
right?
mean, and what's even more real is that we start to believe it at some point. And
Mhm.
then what's really real is that the expectation is that that shift is permanent. And once you step into that role, you have to stay there. People believe you have to stay there.
Yeah. So we were really we were just really into what you sent us when I asked that question, and motherhood is probably one of the clearest examples of what we're just talking about. This assumption that once you become a mother, that becomes the center of everything, your time, your identity, your sense of self.
And all of those things matter, and it should. But the question is, what did you go, where did you go in all of that?
Yes. So Jihan, we want to bring you in here because you chose this literally amazing topic. We could probably talk for like 6 days about. Um, so kind of like what were you holding that made you say that this is what you wanted to talk about?
I'm going through, it's been a transitional year, right? So I think I was on it before for being one of those women that was impacted, one of the Black women impacted for not having a job and not being able to seek work for a year.
Mhm.
And in that period of reflection and self-identity and figuring out who I was, I also was gearing up to put my son through his last year of high school,
Mhm.
Hmm.
which I think
I
all of
feel that.
we can all,
Big
we can,
transitions for everybody.
me and Verda have had this conversation. I've come to her years before and like, girl, okay, what is it like? And so for me, I wanted to figure out who am I?
Hmm.
I've been a mom since I got pregnant at 22. I
Hmm.
walked across the college stage pregnant. And so my,
Which, by the way,
I know,
yeah,
right?
well
finished
done,
my
Congratulations.
degree.
right?
No,
Exactly.
I was 8 months, no, 7 months pregnant crossing that stage. And for me, it was immediately shifting into motherhood.
Hmm.
watching TLC for lessons. Remember they used to have that baby show there? So
I
I
that was
love
that was a
do.
part of my
Yes.
daily routine. I would walk,
Dreamvisions.
I would go shopping, and then I would make sure I was home watching those TLC birth
Hmm.
and delivery shows because
Hmm.
I had never watched kids, didn't know anything about babies.
Mm,
And for me, that's what gravitated. Even though my mother and grandmother had bought me books, that was what caught my attention. So I was immediately fresh off the college stage at 23, at 22 in mother mode.
Hmm.
And so I've been a mother since technically 22, but I actually birthed him when I was 23.
Hmm.
And so for me, it was like, okay, that's all I've known.
Yeah.
That's all
yeah.
I've known, that
Yeah.
and work, on
Yeah.
top of me being a single mother. So
Yeah.
um, as the years have gone by and I've looked at how I've structured my life, thank heavens I've been blessed enough for a majority of his life to be a stay-at-home mom.
Hmm.
Um, And then also looking at how do I, raising a black man, make him more independent,
Yeah.
and understand that mom is going to be here, but also mom has to figure out who she is. So I've
Yeah.
always made
Hmm.
sure I took time for myself, try to understand who I am. But as these years kept approaching, and I kept seeing just people, some people around me where their entire life is their child, and they have
Yeah.
no identity out of that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be like that. So
Yeah. And I think,
yeah.
no, no, no. There's this thing that you said about like, there are a whole bunch of different ways to be a mom. And I think I was older than you when I was 30 when I had my first. And so just thinking about just where we are, like you said, you were 22. Brain is literally still potentially
Right.
forming, right? You're
Right.
still becoming, not even just like emotionally and like kind of as this meta thing, but literally your brain is still happening, right? And so I always think about how it affects people differently and how what everyone wants is what they should get. Right? Like, so you didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom, you said. Well, you did. Wait, what did you want?
No,
Wait a
oh my
minute. What
God.
did you want?
I
And
never
what did you
wanted.
want and what did you
Like,
get?
did you want it? Did you want it?
Actually, I did. I manifested that. I always said, even though because I was like, I'm gonna live my 20s. I'm not gonna have any kids. If I have kids, whatever. But that's not my focus. I'm gonna move to a city, get a chef, a housekeeper, and a dog, and that
Oh,
is my
Love
life,
it.
and
okay.
travel the world, right?
Nice.
Then I
Okay.
had my amazing son, which was not a part of the plan.
Mhm.
And so I always was just like, for me, if I'm gonna do this, I want to do it right. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to be able to have the lifestyle, but also be hands-on with my son and not have to go through the some of the hard stories I've heard about daycares and everything like that. So
Mhm.
that eventually what I was blessed enough to be able to literally do that half of his life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my plan.
Okay. I like that. I like when the plan happens. Now, I would always say this thing, and as we were navigating being moms together around um, you can't like you have to decide which things are important to you and it is okay what you decide, right? Like but
Yeah.
you have to know that, right? So if
You
you
keep,
are doing this with a partner, right? Like it's being a
right.
partner, being, if you it's being a mother, if you are working, it's working, right? It's like being a, being a CEO or being an employee, things like that. And so that was something I'm hearing in what you're saying about you wanted that, you wanted to stay at home. And so I don't know if now you can talk a little bit about that, but the question I have, which is not necessarily connected to that, is the next question would be like, what do you think people misunderstand about motherhood and identity? But not, like I said, I feel like we grappled with that a little bit as we were young moms.
Yeah, I mean, and exactly what you said shortly, it's basically you can choose. Like mine was being a Christian and faithful woman, being a wife, being a mother, and being um an employee and 100% at all of that. And I used to tell these women, you can't. You cannot be 100% all the time at all those things. So you can choose to be 100. Well, you can be I'm always 100% the Christian woman. And then I chose 100% mom. And sometimes it would be 100% wife, but not 100% work. Or I would be 100% work and 80% wife. I mean, the Christian and the kids always there, but the other two could shift. And, my partner would have to be okay with that shift.
Would- Wait, your partner would have to what?
Be
That's
okay with that
hilarious.
shift. Deal
Oh,
with the shift.
what do you think, Jihan, that people misunderstand about motherhood and identity as we talk about this topic?
I think when women have kids, they automatically think their life is over. Like
Mm.
they slip into this mindset of, I can't be who I was before this child. I have to be this certain stature. And if I'm not this certain stature, I'm not adhering to societal norms and
Mm-hmm.
how society views me as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that knows me knows I am very that unconventional mother
Mm-hmm.
because I did not want to fall into the token box of, okay, she's a mom, she's strict, she doesn't know who she is. Like when her kids leave the house, she's going to go into a frantic because her kids don't know how to live without her. But then in all
Mhm.
actuality, she really doesn't know how to live without her kid.
Girl,
That
speak
part.
Like I
that.
see so many people like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
very sad. It's
Yeah.
sad. And I don't ever want my son to feel like my entire world is centered around him because
Mm-hmm.
he's not going to do that when he goes off and is exploring life and having
And
fun
he shouldn't do that when
at
he
all.
goes
That's not
off
his
and exploring life.
responsibility.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
What would you say, now?
I mean, I 100% agree. As you know, Berta, I always believe in raising independent children. And a little morbidly, maybe, but I used to be like, what happens if I'm dead tomorrow? I mean, they're going to be sad. They're going to be a hot mess. I mean, none of those things can you change, but I want them to be able to continue to thrive and to
Mm-hmm.
know that all of this power that hopefully I was able to imbue in them will
Mm-hmm.
continue and that I am always here, even if I'm not here. So, I just wanted my kids were over here doing laundry when they were like 3 because I'm like, you got to know how to do laundry,
That's because she hates. That's also because Na
I do hate
hates doing
laundry.
laundry. So now I was gonna make sure. Look, somebody gotta do this laundry, like
Y'all
that,
gonna
and
do
they know how to do it
Okay,
too. Okay.
exactly.
I think for me, there's this. So I always say this thing about like having kids was the best thing I never wanted to do because I didn't think that I wanted to have children. Like I never, that was not a part of
He
my
always says
That was
that.
not
like,
a
and
part of
even
my
I was like one of the
plan.
first in our friend group. Remember, people first get married. People were like, "Who are you? Who is this person? She's not having children." And so for me, there's this thing that I think there's a misunderstanding that it's not necessarily there's no going back and that's okay. Like it is actually you're entering this kind of new thing that you get to
Mhm.
define, you get to create it in the way that you want. It's about meeting who you've become, you know, and I think you get to decide what stays, what evolves, what can you finally put down, whether it's during the process, like what you were saying now about the things that are 80, 100, whatever percent, but also like as you're kind of like growing through it. And I think that, and it connects to what you said, Jihan. I can't remember exactly how you said it, which was just like really good, but like that you don't have to depend on that role per se, but it can become this new version of yourself. And I really embrace that because I just didn't know what it would be like to be a mom. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I did same as you. I wasn't around babies a lot when I was growing up. So I didn't play with dolls to like have like a family and all
I
that stuff.
never
Like,
played with
None,
dolls.
none
That
of
was my
that.
so
twin sister.
so I think it's like I just think it's a becoming. I think that like motherhood is a becoming, and if we can embrace it in that way, then it's not it's so many different iterations that it can be, and the different ways to define it.
Well, Gian, what you were saying earlier about how you have, it's the same thing Verta said, how you have to be, people think it has to be this thing.
Hmm.
One of those things, and Verta, I don't know if you remember, you will remember, but she would always say that her body, like your kids at school would be like, your body changed. And you're like, yeah, I got some more hips. I
No,
got
they
some
were like they were happy. They were so
right.
hilarious because I was a teacher and I was thin. I was like so skinny, and I did. I remember and I remember exactly who it was. I won't call her out in her whole name, but one student she's like, "Oh, we were worried about you, miss. You were so thin, and then you had that baby, and you got some hips. It was yeah, we're so happy for you." I was like,
First of
Really,
all,
really.
kids are the most honest
It's
individuals.
like third, fourth graders
Oh,
too. It was so cute.
oh yeah, those
Yeah.
those are the ones.
Sorry,
But it
Dot.
is.
Go.
Well,
What were
no,
you gonna
no,
say?
that's exactly it. It's just about embracing the becoming. And some of
Mhm.
that, you know, what you said earlier made me think, yeah, it's you don't go back to the way
Mhm.
your body was. And do you want to?
Yeah. Well, sometimes.
Yeah, I gained 30 pounds, but it's grief weight. But for me, it's just like, okay, I'm about to be 42. I'm trying to look fine. I'm gonna be 42 with an adult child. Like who, like it's perfect, you know?
You have
Well,
exactly. I was gonna say you've got
actually, I'll
so
be
much.
41 with an adult child. I have 2 months on him. So I get to brag. That's my bragging right, our bragging rights. But yeah, so sometimes for me, it's just like, do I keep the same body? Do I achieve this body that I had when I was in college? I'm like, girl, if you don't,
I mean, we're
step
not
up to the plate
supposed
and
to.
realize it goes up and down.
Yeah, it's so. I think there's this thing that I'll say to Nala. I wish I was as big as I thought I was back then, like, because I was all like stressed about it. But there is this very because it's about becoming, I think our society very specifically in the US, it's like you got to like bounce back in every single way, whether it's professionally, whether it's how you look and all of these things. And there's something like beautiful about this evolution of our bodies and of evolution of who we are. I feel like as women, it's one of the most magical things, and they're trying to contain it by making us
Hmm.
think it has to look a certain way. But it's beautiful. We are one of the few that get to do all of these different evolutions of self and of body and of mind and spirit. So I've been trying to embrace it a lot and kind of see each of them as this different way of becoming.
Okay, so what you spoke about you kind of started talking about, you know, at 41, almost 42, having this adult child. Um, are there things that you are realigning about who you are
Mhm.
as a woman, as a mother, as in this world?
Yeah, I actually have been, that's been like on my, like I just said, I came back from Puerto Rico and I took some time to just reflect on what I want. What does this next stage look like for me, you know? He's going to college. I'm not going to have anybody in the house. It's just been me and him his entire my
Mm,
past 20 something years.
right,
Mhm.
right.
And so for me, it's like, okay, what does that look like for me? What is my happiness? I was just walking around just thinking about this the other day. I was like, what is truly my happiness? You know, what
Mhm.
am I doing to make sure I'm fulfilling my needs of just understanding who Jihan is? How am I redeveloping and sitting with self to understand what my identity is outside of my child?
Mm,
So I've been strategizing on that probably for a year. And so I'm getting back into taking myself out on dates by myself,
Mhm.
making sure that I'm around my friends. I'm not as accessible to my child because usually it's he calls, I'm dropping everything, and it's that. And so now I'm getting used to like, no, you're almost 18. You can Uber. Mommy is outside having her time. And then also just realizing that it's okay to not know.
Yeah.
It's okay to
I
not
like that
know.
part. Yeah,
yeah,
I like that.
Like
yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
go with the flow moment because you're
Yep.
still mothering,
Of
but
course.
because you've never been here before, you don't know what style of mothering is actually going to come because you
Mhm.
don't know what decisions are going to happen, what trials and tribulations are going to happen with your children. But then on the other side, it's like, yeah, hell yeah, I got my fucking freedom now. Oh my God. Like I bought Jay-Z tickets just for myself. I was like, I am enjoying traveling this year.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not constrained anymore to K through 12 school zones and
Right.
school times. And
Yes. Yeah.
you
That,
know,
I mean, this
that
shift,
right
this,
there is the
exactly.
biggest shift in the world for me. Like no absences. Like if I want to take
No,
a kid,
no
I don't have
calls.
to write
Oh, such and
a
such is late to
note
school
or
today.
no schoolwork. So that's the exciting part about motherhood that I'm
Yeah. Nice.
actually looking forward to is the no interruption when traveling. Because he is a kid that enjoys traveling and
Mhm.
understanding different cultures. But then also for me, it's like, do I date? Am I
I mean,
comfortable with
yeah.
dating?
Listen,
I
that's a
haven't
whole
dated.
other.
I was gonna ask, have
episode.
you not dated in a while or
I
yeah.
think within my entire span of motherhood, 18 years, I've been in maybe two serious relationships. I'm very protective about who I bring around my son.
Hmm.
And if I don't feel like it's gonna be longevity, I'm not introducing you to my son. Out of those relationships, my son has only met two men. I keep
Mm.
I keep
Yeah.
it away. I
There's
keep it away.
something there's two things that came up. There's this like little exercise I do at when I go grocery shopping that I thought about, and then there's also this topic, which is about dating and being a being a single, um, a single woman in the world. And there's two parts to it because I was very similar. Like I realized recently, and I think I realized after both of mine were graduated from high school, which was just this year, that I was never really going to seriously date. I think I was so
Mhm.
protective of this, just everything you said. Who's going to come into that? Like, what does that mean for how I can show up for them? All of that. And the flip side of it, and these are some of the things that I think we don't talk about because there's some darkness to being a mom. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? There's moments where
Oh, it's not
you,
all perfect.
right? And I just think it's fair to say that because I also did a lot of exercises on kind of like this, that kind of like darkness of it. Um, but I worry sometimes that they did not get to see me being loved
Mhm.
as a woman in the world when they were growing up, and what model was that or not, right? And so there's this like there's these two sides to it. And so maybe when we come back on the other side,
Yeah.
we can talk about some of maybe those things that we don't talk about. What are some of the things
The
that are
flip side.
silent, the flip side, because there's the joys of it, right? So we will be right back and we will see you on the other side. Welcome back to that part. You can find us in all the places that you listen to podcasts. You can visit us on our website, www.45lemons.com. That's the number four and the number five. And we are 45 Lemons in all the spaces. So catch us there. And we are with Jihan, and we are starting to talk about some of the things that people don't talk about. Yeah, there's a lot of beautiful, amazing things about motherhood. And then there's some things that are like the dark things or the things that we just don't get to talk about out loud or just the silent things. They don't even have to be dark, they're silent. And when I hadn't had my daughter yet. And I went to this like little mini retreat where we were talking about some of the things that just kind of like scare us about being moms. And I remember calling Now once and talking about how, so I was 30 when I had my son. And I used to remember how they would talk about like shaken babies, like people would like shake their babies, and I could not understand it. Like, well, this was pre having a kid. I was like, who would ever do that? But when you're sleep deprived, your child won't breastfeed. The lactation consultant has come and tied all kinds of tubes to your boobs to get this baby to breastfeed. You have not eaten, and the baby's crying because the baby's hungry. And I said in that moment, I was like, I could totally understand how a 15-year-old who is having a baby or someone who's just going through it would just be like, be quiet. And I'm not saying that it is right. I am just saying that there's a mental place that you can go where I understood. And it's about, and for me, it was being able to pick up the phone and call, nah, or talk to other moms because I was one of the first in kind of like my group to have a baby, but also I was always the very honest one. I would say that being a mother, best thing I ever wanted to do. And lo and behold, like 2 days later, I was like, give this baby formula. We not doing this because that was causing me stress. So I was like, you got enough. You're gonna be good. And I got the other one who I had to have like a conversation at 18 months talking about this is my body, that is yours. We need to have we need to separate. But every child is different. And so I think it would be interesting to hear some of your thoughts, Jihan, about that, what you, and particularly because you did talk about being a relatively young mom.
Mhm.
So I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I immediately said no to breastfeeding. No, not doing that.
I said yes. I loved it. I thought it was the best thing, but
No,
don't, but he
I was
didn't.
just like, first of all, my boobs were ginormous. I had to have the cabbage leaves, frozen cabbage leaves. I had a
Oh, I never heard
Filipino
of that.
nurse that tied me up, put frozen cabbage leaves on my breasts to dry out the milk because they were so swollen. Like when I had my son,
Mm.
I was like, nobody ever knows this. It's so funny. I was like a triple G cup. I got a breast reduction a year after I had my son.
Wow. So
Yeah,
wait, so because of the lactation, or
it
you
grew
were
bigger
and then,
during pregnancy, and because of the lactation at birth, I was in so much pain.
oh
And
wow.
some women I think are, some women they like produce so much. And I think like there's some historical things about like, black women and being used constantly to like actually breastfeed and feed babies, but there are some women who they're just like overproducers. And if you're not going to breastfeed and you're doing that, and I know I remember the cabbage or like even banana leaves, it's like whatever,
Hmm.
your cultural thing and like you would put it on it to help bring it down and to stop your mammary glands from like actually producing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, birth was harder. Well, after birth was harder. My C-section came undone. So I had a nurse at my house. And
Mm,
so for me, that was a young girl. I was just like, yeah, no, I'm
mm,
not
Yeah.
doing this again. I'm not messing up my body. Like,
mm,
I'm not messing up my body. This is like
Yeah.
real surgery. But then also, I was still wanting a party, right? So a week after I had my son,
Get
I was
it?
in the club. I was still
Oh, wow.
young.
But
I
you're
was
young. I
young.
mean,
I partied my whole pregnancy. I didn't drink. I didn't
mm-hmm,
drink because
Like
I don't
doots,
drink
doots,
alcohol.
doots.
But
mm-hmm,
I wanted to dance. I was at the Mary J. Blige and Jay-Z concerts, 7 months pregnant, standing on the chairs. I went to a ludicrous private listening party a week after birth.
mm-hmm,
So I wanted to still, I didn't want to miss out.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the hardest things is that I had to balance as a young mother, do I miss out or do I go? And
mm,
then I didn't know it was postpartum at that time, but I
Mm,
had a really bad postpartum thing.
yes.
So where my mom and my sister came up to Maryland and took my son for like 2 months so I could just get a breather because I didn't know
yeah.
what the hell I was doing. I was
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
coasting. Like
Yeah.
I always say motherhood for me has been a coast. Like I grew up with my son. I didn't set rules. We have our rules, like the regular rules, like be respectful, don't talk back.
Right.
But I'm as even at 41, I'm still learning how to mother, especially in this phase of having an almost 18-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I make sure that he is a successful, safe Black male going into this next chapter of his life?
I mean, and that learning how to mother, I don't think stops. It just doesn't stop. It evolves. There was something you said earlier about accessibility. And I was like thinking it's just being differently accessible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, you're probably physically accessible and differently mentally accessible. But as they get older, this 18, 19, 20, I have a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old, it is a different accessibility where you have to let go of I'm there physically, or I'm driving you somewhere because that haven't happened in a minute, but there is still, and this is still the darker side, by the way, that I'm talking about being mentally accessible to your children.
Yes.
So what do you think about that?
Can I say something though, and you can answer that, but I do want to go back to the postpartum depression and
Hmm.
like this. I feel like we live in, today in 2026, there's so much more being talked about what that is, what that is, and you naming that you didn't even know what was
No.
happening because it's not a conversation that was
Mm-mm.
had, right? And, some stats say that anywhere from 29 to 44% of Black women in the United States experience some symptoms or some level of postpartum depressive, symptoms. And so I just want to like kind of state that because the power of having your mom and your sister
That,
recognize and
yeah,
come and do something for you. And I
It
feel
was
like it's
it
just
was
like,
it
right?
was so much.
Yeah.
Had a new mom, a newborn. I was breaking up with his father.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just my world just felt spiraling to the
Yeah.
point where one of my college friends pulled my sister to the side. She was like, "What's wrong with Jihan? She's not herself.
Mm-hmm.
She don't
Right.
look like herself. What is wrong with her?"
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when my sister was like, "I don't know what's going on," but she told my mom, and my
Yeah.
mom was
yeah,
like, "Go get that baby," because I was
Mm-hmm.
living in Maryland trying to
Mm-hmm.
do the family thing.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was like, "Go get that baby, and we're going to take him for 2 months." By that time, he was like almost 8, 9, 10 months. And I was just like, whew,
Thank goodness. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could breathe.
You could
I could
breathe. And you didn't
breathe.
even know that you weren't breathing,
No, I didn't know I
right?
wasn't breathing,
Mhm.
And so now, as I just reflect on everything and I see how people are talking about it and more open about it,
Yeah.
it's like I sympathize with them because at least you all had the education. But for me, I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, I think, Verdi, you're mentioning that it is it is still quiet
I
postpartum.
agree.
I mean, I know we see it more,
Yeah.
but even now you see it where it's reflected in a TV show or in a
Right.
movie, and even then it's quiet,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And
right.
because
It's like still
society
a
expects you to just be a happy, great
Bounce
mom
back.
and like, ooh, or so, and that those things are everything
Mhm.
is changing in your world and all of that. And it's something that happens and it happens to a lot of women and they go in silence bearing that, And so it is just my
Yeah, I
hope.
can honestly say, just like I say, I love my son to death. He
Mhm.
has taught me so much, but that entire process made me not want to birth kids ever again.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I mean, yes. It's like you had a medical thing
Oh, and
in
we
your
didn't even talk
body,
about the medical
right?
things that
Like
happen for
that's
Black women, right? Like, and how just, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't even.
Was
I
that acknowledged? Let's go back to that for a second. Was that acknowledged by your doctor? Like, did they stand by you?
Yeah, how
Because
did you
that
feel?
is a big
No,
thing
I was
for,
by myself. I
Mm,
was like, when I say I did everything by myself. I went to the doctors by myself.
hmm
I drove myself to my first checkup after birth. So for me, it was a very traumatic experience. So I was like, I'm not doing this. I don't care if I got married. I don't care if
right?
I did it again. I am not taking myself through this. I was smart enough to make that final decision.
Mhm.
And
hmm
I get chastised sometimes because people are like, well, why don't you have more kids? Why don't you? And I don't
Why
ever
don't
tell
you? Like
people
you do
that full
that. You do
story.
I
that.
And it's
know.
like,
You
because I
do
love
that.
my body and I'm selfish enough to
And
know that
because you
I'm
don't
not
have to
taking
answer
care of
that
kids my
question,
whole
quite
damn life.
frankly. None your business, because I don't
I-
want to. Because full
Exactly.
you,
stop.
I'll say you said I was selfish enough to make that decision, but let
Oh
me
yeah.
tell you that I think women sometimes are selfish enough to have more children.
Hmm.
So let's not, the selfish gets a judgment. There's no judgment. If you
Yeah.
choose to have more children,
Hmm
that's like a selfish decision. And if you choose not to have more children, that's a selfish decision. And both are fine,
hmm
Yeah.
both are
They
fine.
are.
And doing what felt right for you, and what I think potentially allowed you to be the mother that you were able to then be to
Exactly.
your son, right? And like, and about
Yeah.
that, right? And
I'm
so,
grateful for that. I'm
yeah,
grateful that it allowed me to literally be his best friend. Like,
yeah.
I tell you, that's my dog. That is my road dog. We do everything together.
Mhm.
I've been able to raise him in an open, culturally fluid household. He's bounced around city to city with me as I discover and embark on my different dreams and goals.
Mhm.
And so I'm grateful that I've been able to have that design for us. If I
Yeah.
would have had more kids, I know personally I would have never been able to live the lifestyle that I wanted to maintain while I
Mhm.
also being responsible for another human and providing him with a healthy, safe, kind of extravagant lifestyle. Um, and I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And you made space for yourself to exist
Mhm.
and still love your son deeply. And that's like a tricky balance. And sometimes it's off, sometimes it's not. But I do think you're like kind of sitting in this moment, realizing like these are some decisions that you made. And I'm curious if someone else was listening and feels disconnected from themselves after a major life shift or after having a baby, what is one place that they can start, in your opinion, right? Like now with all this wisdom, Jihan, the sage, the
Uh,
sage, what would y'all say?
well, but I was going to say, hold that question, and we will be back right after this break to discuss that. Welcome back to that part with 45 Lemons. We are today speaking with the lovely, the amazing, the everything Jihan. And Verta asked a question right before we went on break about, I don't remember the
I'll
question,
say it.
but
If someone,
yes, thank
if
you.
this is to Jihan and to you, this is to all of us here, but if someone listening feels disconnected from themselves after having a baby, motherhood, different or a major life shift, what is one place that they can start um, to realign, to find them, to come back to
So I'm
themselves?
gonna say two things, but it goes together. Ask for
Hmm.
help.
Yes.
Ask for help.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Don't let your ego get in the way that
Yeah.
you cannot be vulnerable enough to ask for help.
Hmm.
Ask for help. Number two, journal.
Hmm.
Journal and meditate
Hmm.
go hand in hand because it will give you peace and solitude. I have a ritual where I get up every morning at between 4:30, 5 o'clock, because that's the most silent time of hour when everybody else is still and sleeping. And not because I have an older child, I get to do this. But I was also blessed because my son slept through the night. But take that moment to appreciate yourself, to be grounded within self, to
Hmm.
give yourself the confidence talks that you will need to get through some of the toughest days.
Yeah.
Because trust me, motherhood has not been easy on me all the time.
Hmm.
Um, but if I didn't put that mindfulness hour in my life, I'd be like a damn roller coaster. I'll be all over the place. And so that's what has really centered me. Like right now, I'll do 30 minutes at 5, and
Hmm.
then 5:30, I'm in the gym. That's my time.
Hmm.
And then I jump immediately into mother mode, and then immediately an hour down for myself, and then I'm in work mode for the next. So I'm giving myself to everybody else, but also remember you cannot fill other people's buckets if your bucket is not filled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't do.
Nah, what would you, how would you?
I was going to say, Verta, you go first.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go back to this thing that I started doing. Um, I don't know, maybe like it's been like 4 years ago. Is I will pick a day where I will go to the grocery store and I will only buy what I want because I have this habit of thinking about everyone else's needs and like, if what are we gonna
Indeed.
have for dinner? What are all the things, you know what I mean? What is this person like? And I actually enjoy that about myself. Like, I'm not saying, you know what I mean? Like, I actually like that, if Na's coming, I'm gonna have the granola that I know she likes available, like for her. But I started to not, what do I like? You had said this even earlier in our conversation. And so I would go, and it was really difficult because I have to keep catching myself. And wait, I'm thinking I'm going to get this particular, type of orange because I know that my daughter she likes Cara Cara, not Sumo, whatever it is, right? And so that's one thing that I started doing. I was like, I'm gonna just go for myself and I'm gonna do that. And that is, my cart is only filled with what I want, and other people can adjust to that. Or they don't have to eat my stuff, or they can, right? So that was like one really small thing that I did. And I am not in my physical yoga practice as much as I want to be, but that was one of the practices in my life that really helped me to be grounded and to accept this body as it was moving, as it was existing, as it was going from, this weight to that weight to this thing to that thing. And that was a really big for me. And I would seek out yoga instructors who were Black, which was hard. I would seek out yoga instructors who had, different bodies than the Lululemon ones that we might see when you see, the clothes. That's what I would seek to have in front of me instructing. And that just continued to do something for my psyche. And so those were things. And the last thing I will say is the whole like picking the things that are important to you. And for me, it always has been like I do love my work and being an innovator and doing those things. And so, like, those things were still remained important and staying connected to those things that were important, whether it was, yeah. So those were some of the things that I did that I think I wish I had done some of them earlier.
Yeah. I mean, if you back to the ask for help, I think
Mhm.
in that same parallel is don't be silent.
Yeah.
And so we live in this world where you said earlier, Jihan, people are like, you have to be like this, and this has to do, and you have to raise your children like this. And if you don't do the things that I think a mother should do, or you don't do it in the way, um, then there's something wrong with you, or you're being a bad mother, or you're all of those things. And not being silent about whatever is happening. Crap happens. I mean, I think my kids are wonderful, and they also did some whack ass things that I'm like, what the
Okay.
heck? And so, right, you were going to say something, Gia.
I was just agreeing with you. Like, some days you don't like your kids. Like,
Right,
You're like, I don't, what
it's like,
do
get the
right,
fuck out my face. Like,
right. It's like,
you have those moments. You play too much,
right.
especially when you're a boy mom. It's just like, okay.
Talk about boy mom.
we have this whole thing that we nod
Oh,
on the
boy
boy mom
moms.
thing. Like they just be shadow boxing you in the kitchen. Like, what are
Oh,
we
you just
doing?
randomly
Lock
come up and it's
in.
just like, oh, and I'm just like, all right, come on, let's put the boxing gloves on. Let's just go one round real quick. You break my nail, you're gonna pay for it. Motherhood, being a boy mom makes you tougher. And sorry, nah, I know
No, no, finish. No, continue.
it just makes it's just a funner experience. I don't know. I don't have a girl.
I love both of them. They're different. They're so different.
I've
So
heard.
different. And so
And I was like
you would be loving
horrified
it.
of
You would be loving both
yeah,
too. Yeah.
I love both. I also am really honest. Like I don't love anything before 6 months. Like that's for the birds. Everybody can have that. 6 months and on though, I am rocking with every phase. And that's another thing that I would always say to people. What about the terrible twos? They're asking all these questions. I was like, that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're gonna claim those languages, and like, I was very into the psychology of it. I'm an educator, so I kind of, they're challenged, they're finding their independence, all of those things. And so, and also, we black, so we know we give a look in the street and you will not fall out again. Like, so what we not doing is that, right? So anyway, I digress. I digress.
No, no, no. I mean, it's all those things. And
Yeah.
so the not being silent because you're afraid somebody's going to judge you and or judge your children
Mm-hmm.
and or come back at you. A friend of mine, shout out to Akuyo. I always love to go shout out in every podcast.
She does.
And so shout out to her because a few weeks ago I was talking to her and I said, "Oh, remember when I told you this happened with my son?" Something I said, and she's like, "I don't." It wasn't even th anything negative, but she's like, "I don't," and she's like, "I practice. I'm going to say this wrong," but she said something like, "I practice forgetfulness in like." When people talk about their children, not that I don't remember who their children are, but like the things that happen. She's like, I'm not going to come back and be like, remember when your kid did this, or he was out here doing this, or she was, she's like, I practice mindful forgetfulness, I think is what she said, because she's going to love every moment of you
Yeah.
saying all the good and you saying all the bad. And she
Yeah.
doesn't want you to feel
Mhm.
like you're going to be judged later for something you shared about negative, negativity around that. And
And
I think, oh, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
go finish that, and then
Well,
I'll.
no, the last part is do whatever the hell you want. I mean, I am in this space where I'm like, I give so much to my children, to my family, to work, so if I want to do something, I'm gonna do it.
I'm gonna do
And right?
it. Yeah.
I'm gonna do it.
So I have
So
two
that,
things for us to think about as we like come to the close. The first is a question for both of you and just for us to think about, which is what is something that Black women understand about this experience that we've just been talking about,
hmm,
the realigning as well as, after, during, whilst motherhood, that the rest of the world has not caught up to? Like, what is something that's like really unique to us? And then, of course, I got a little vitamin C to close us out.
hmm. Well, I'm gonna throw that at Jihan because I gotta think about that one.
Well, I can also start, but Gian's ready. Gian, stay ready.
I was
I was
gonna
gonna
say
say
she's
one
ready.
thing that Black women have that the rest of the world doesn't.
That we understand about this experience that the rest of the world has not caught up to yet.
That it's okay.
Hmm.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
okay. You
Hmm.
got to remember, Black women have faced the roughest things in the world, and we've persevered. But we understand that it's okay not to be strong. We understand that it's okay to make mistakes without having any regrets. And we know how to move on and push through, no matter what our trials and tribulations are. And some people may have caught on that, but some people do not know how to move through it. There are a lot of
Yes.
cultures that get caught up in the beginning stages and don't know the strategy and exit plan of how to get out. And we do it so
Yes.
seamlessly because we hold our households together.
Mine's really connected to that, which is just that like we've rarely had the luxury of just being any one thing. We can't only be mothers, right? We've always had to be everything at once, whether it's provider, protector, carriers of the culture, workers, all of it, right? Like leaders of movements. So when we as we're talking about like aligning or realigning, we've been doing that, constantly adjusting. So it's like really, I think that that's the thing. And I see it now. I see it currently in this day, 2026, as people are shocked and awe about the things going on in the world. And we like,
Okay, what's
we've
next?
been told y'all like
What's our hair
literally
color?
every day.
Where are we
We've
going
been
to
told
next?
y'all, right? And that at this place, I feel that we are choosing ourselves without being framed as selfish or too late or an option. So like you said, now, like if you want to do it, do your thing. And I think what's new is the possibility of doing it on our terms. I think we're now more able to do
I love it. I got nothing to add to either one of those. They're both
that.
brilliant.
All
And
right.
so,
So
yes,
I we generally close out with we call it vitamin C, and I always have some type of quote. But this book has been it has come up
Send me the
before.
link.
Yes, it's called Black Liturgies, Prayers, Poems, and Meditations for Staying Human by Cole Arthur Riley. I was introduced to this author during COVID, during the pandemic. And so this section is from prayers, and I'll say like whatever you want to call it, whether it's God, Allah, the universe. Today I'm going to say steady ancestors. We are shapeshifters, drifting in and out of our counterfeit selves, depending on whom we are in proximity to. There are days when who we are feels so imprecise, so transient that we wonder if anything of us is real at all. Turn us toward the parts of us that are true and reveal the parts that are more mask than flesh. Keep us from demonizing our false selves, but let us turn to them in curiosity and compassion, knowing every mask is born of a wound. Travel with us into memories of all that has formed us, those secret places in ourselves where we have hesitated to go. And on the journey, may we listen for the sound of our own name. May we speak it with the conviction of one who knows it by heart. And amen to that.
amen to that.
Received.
And so, thank you so much for being with us today, Jihan.
Always. You guys
So,
are my
And
so happy.
sisters. So
Our
yes,
always.
first guest ever, and now our first video guest ever.
yeah.
Oh, wait, this is
And
the first video?
Yes,
yes,
this is our
Oh,
new season two. So you're
congratulations,
our first.
guys.
So we wanted to bring you back because you were going through it in that last one. We wanted to bring you back to talk about whatever you want.
It's so
Um
peaceful now. It's so peaceful. I can't wait to announce what I'm doing, but I
oh,
just want to say shout out to the Black women
hmm.
in my life.
Yeah,
Shout out
that's
to you.
awesome. And so we just want anyone to notice where you feel most like yourself, even if it's brief, even if it's in quiet moments, because you are still there and you deserve to come back to yourself.
that part.
That part.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.